Elizabeth Taylor reveals the horrors of Richard Burton divorce. Elizabeth Taylor was born Dame Elizabeth Roseman Taylor on February 27, 1932, in Hamstead, London, England, to American parents. She was a child of two worlds, raised amidst the refinement of British culture while carrying the glamour of Hollywood in her blood. Her father, Francis Taylor, was an art dealer, and her mother, Sarah Sawern, had been an actress, setting the stage early for Elizabeth's entry into the world of performance. The family moved back to the United States just before the outbreak of World War II, settling in Los Angeles, a city that would soon shape her destiny. Taylor's career began in childhood when her striking violet eyes, framed by impossibly thick lashes, captivated casting directors. She made her screen debut at the age of 10 in the film There's One Born Every Minute, 1942, but it was her role in National Velvet, 1944, at age 12, that launched her into stardom. Her natural screen presence, mature beyond her years, marked her as one of Hollywood's most precocious young talents. As she transitioned into adult roles, Elizabeth Taylor established herself as not just a beauty icon, but also a formidable actress. Films such as A Place in the Sun, 1951, Giant, 1956, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, 1958, and Suddenly, Last Summer, 1959, earned her critical acclaim. Her fearless emotional range, fierce vulnerability, and magnetic presence earned her 5 Academy Award nominations, and she won 2 Oscars for Best Actress, one for Butterfield 8, 1960, and another for her searing performance in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, 1966. Her legendary status was further solidified by her role in Cleopatra, 1963, not only for her portrayal of the Egyptian queen, but also because it marked the beginning of her tumultuous romance with actor Richard Burton. The two would marry and divorce twice, forming one of the most public and passionate love stories in Hollywood history. Their chemistry on-screen in films like The Taming of the Shrew and The Sandpiper mirrored their volatile but deeply emotional off-screen relationship. Beyond her work in front of the camera, Elizabeth Taylor was admired for her resilience in the face of personal challenges. She survived life-threatening illnesses, endured multiple surgeries, and battled addiction with honesty and strength. She was one of the first celebrities to speak candidly about her struggles with health and substance abuse, paving the way for greater openness in Hollywood about these issues. Equally important was her tireless advocacy for HIV/AIDS awareness and research. After the death of her close friend Rock Hudson in 1985, Taylor co-founded the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, and later established the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, donating millions of her own money. At a time when the disease was heavily stigmatized, her involvement brought visibility, compassion, and dignity to those affected. Her activism remains one of her most significant legacies. Elizabeth Taylor was also known for her extravagant lifestyle and iconic fashion sense. She was a connoisseur of fine jewelry and owned some of the world's most famous diamonds, including the 33-carat Krupp diamond and the 69-carat Taylor Burton diamond. Her fashion and elegance influenced generations, and she was one of the first stars to launch a successful fragrance line, with white diamonds becoming one of the best-selling celebrity perfumes in history. Elizabeth Taylor's personal life was as dramatic and captivating as the legendary roles she played on screen. Over the course of her lifetime, she walked down the aisle an astonishing 8 times, marrying 7 different men, a testament to her passionate and complex nature. Her first husband was Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., heir to the Hilton Hotel fortune, whom she married at the young age of 18. This union thrust her even further into the glare of the public eye and introduced her to a world of wealth and high society. Yet, it was only the beginning of a series of high-profile marriages that reflected both the glamour and turbulence of her life. Her second husband was Michael Wilding, a British actor with whom she shared a quieter, more private relationship during the early 1950s. Despite the difference in their temperaments, their marriage lasted 5 years and produced 2 sons, Michael Jr. and Christopher. Following her divorce from Wilding, Elizabeth married Mike Todd, a wealthy film producer whose charm and vitality captivated her deeply. Their marriage was a joyful one, marked by their daughter, Elizabeth Liza Todd. Tragically, Todd's life was cut short in a plane crash in 1958, a loss that devastated Taylor and remained a defining moment in her life. Her 4th marriage was to Eddie Fisher, a popular singer and actor, a union that sparked intense media attention, partly because it followed Fisher's highly publicized divorce from Debbie Reynolds. Elizabeth's marriage to Fisher was passionate but short-lived, lasting less than 2 years. However, it was her 5th marriage to the charismatic actor Richard Burton that truly captured public fascination and became one of Hollywood's most legendary love stories. Elizabeth and Richard's relationship was tempestuous and intense, marked by fierce devotion and equally fierce conflicts. They married twice, first in 1964 and then again in 1975 after a brief divorce. Symbolizing a relationship that was both enduring and tumultuous, marked by shared passion for both each other and the arts. Following Burton, Elizabeth's 6th husband was John Warner, a prominent Virginia politician and later a U.S. senator. Their marriage was more grounded in companionship and mutual respect, but ultimately ended in divorce in 1982. Finally, Elizabeth's 7th and last marriage was to Larry Fortensky, a construction worker she met during her stay at the Betty Ford Clinic. This marriage, which began in 1991, was notably more private and low-key, lasting 6 years before ending in divorce. But Elizabeth Taylor's romantic life extended far beyond her 7 husbands. She was known to have had affairs and extramarital relationships with numerous important and influential men across various fields, highlighting her magnetic charm and her complex, passionate nature. Among these were Glenn Davis, the Olympic gold medalist, Howard Hughes, the enigmatic billionaire aviator and industrialist known for his eccentric lifestyle, Frank Sinatra, the legendary singer and actor who was a symbol of charisma and style, Henry Kissinger, the powerful U.S. Secretary of State and diplomat, and Malcolm Forbes, the flamboyant publisher and billionaire. These relationships, some fleeting and others longer-lasting, often added layers of intrigue and complexity to her public persona, as well as to her private life. Elizabeth Taylor was also a devoted mother. She was blessed with 4 children, 2 biological sons, Michael Jr. and Christopher, born during her marriage to Michael Wilding, a daughter, Liza Todd, with her 3rd husband, Mike Todd, and an adopted daughter, Maria Burton, whom she took into her family during her marriage to Richard Burton. Her role as a mother was a significant and grounding part of her life, even amidst the chaos and glamour that surrounded her. Taylor was known to be fiercely protective and deeply loving toward her children, often juggling the demands of motherhood alongside her intense career and public life. Through all her marriages, romances, and motherhood, Elizabeth Taylor remained an iconic figure, a woman whose love life was as legendary as her talent, embodying the contradictions of passion and vulnerability, glamour and struggle, independence and desire for connection. Her relationships were not merely tabloid fodder, but reflected the complexities of a woman who lived life on her own terms, fearlessly embracing love in all its many forms. Elizabeth Taylor, one of Hollywood's most iconic and enigmatic actresses, lived a life marked by passion, glamour, and emotional turmoil. Among the most talked-about chapters of her personal life was her tempestuous relationship with Welsh actor Richard Burton, a saga that spanned 2 marriages, 2 divorces, and a legacy of love, excess, and heartache that has fascinated generations. When Taylor later opened up about her separation from Burton, she did not hold back. What emerged was a raw, heartbreaking, and sometimes harrowing portrait of a love story gone wrong, one filled with emotional torment, bitter quarrels, substance abuse, jealousy, and soul-crushing disillusionment. Taylor described their first marriage as an intense emotional roller coaster, both exhilarating and exhausting. Their union was born of immense passion on the set of Cleopatra, a film that became infamous not just for its budget, but for the scandalous affair that unfolded between the married co-stars. From the beginning, their love burned with a dangerous intensity. Taylor once said that when it was good, it was unbearably beautiful, but when it was bad, it was destructive beyond reason. The highs were dizzying, filled with jewels, yachts, champagne-soaked vacations, and moments of artistic collaboration that bordered on magical. But the lows were terrifying. Their fights were notorious, often erupting into screaming matches that would spill out of hotel rooms and into public places. Taylor admitted that Burton's drinking grew uncontrollable during their time together, and that alcohol transformed him from a witty, affectionate man into someone she could barely recognize. The more he drank, the more cutting and cruel he became. He would hurl insults, question her talent, her beauty, and even her worth as a woman. Taylor, no stranger to inner battles herself, often found solace in prescription pills and alcohol, creating a toxic environment that became impossible to sustain. Jealousy and insecurity haunted their marriage. Burton was known to be deeply insecure about Taylor's fame, her acclaim, and the way the world seemed to worship her. Taylor, on the other hand, felt increasingly suffocated by his possessiveness and by the way their once legendary love had curdled into mutual resentment. She confessed in later interviews that there were nights when she cried herself to sleep, feeling trapped in a marriage that was both emotionally abusive and physically draining. Despite the grandeur of their lifestyle, the diamonds, the villas, the adoring fans, she often felt empty, isolated, and unsure of who she had become. Their 1974 divorce, after a decade of marriage, was a moment of deep emotional devastation for Taylor. She likened the experience to tearing out a piece of her soul. Even though she had initiated the separation, she described herself as broken, racked with guilt, confusion, and longing. What made it even more complicated was the fact that their love never truly died. The pair would reunite for a second marriage just 16 months later, believing that perhaps, with time and distance, they could mend what was broken. But the underlying issues, the alcohol, the arguments, the fragile egos, had not changed. Within a year, they divorced again. In later years, Taylor would reflect on both the joy and the suffering of her time with Burton. She spoke of moments of genuine tenderness, of laughter and intellectual connection that few others could understand. But she also spoke of the darkness, the volatility, the dependence, the heartbreak. She admitted that despite all the pain, she never stopped loving him. Even after his death in 1984, she mourned him profoundly and carried the emotional scars of their love affair with her for the rest of her life. When Elizabeth Taylor revealed the horrors of her divorce from Richard Burton, she offered the world not just gossip or scandal, but a searingly honest portrait of love's potential to uplift and to destroy. Her courage in speaking openly about emotional abuse, substance dependency, and the psychological cost of passion in the public eye added layers of depth to her already complex persona. Far from the flawless screen goddess, she emerged as a vulnerable, bruised, and deeply human woman whose greatest performance may have been surviving the wreckage of a love too big for real life. Elizabeth Taylor endured a lifetime of serious health complications that deeply impacted her personally and professionally. From childhood, she battled physical ailments, beginning with a congenital condition. She was born with scoliosis, a curvature of the spine that would predispose her to years of back pain and limited mobility. Her spinal issues were exacerbated dramatically when, at just 12 years old, she suffered a traumatic injury while filming the 1944 classic National Velvet. During a fall from a horse, Taylor broke her back, though the fracture was not correctly diagnosed at the time. For years afterward, she experienced chronic, debilitating back pain, which she endured silently while continuing to appear on screen with seemingly effortless glamour. It was only years later that doctors discovered the severity of the spinal damage. By 1956, her back problems had worsened to the point that surgery was necessary. In a delicate and risky operation, surgeons removed several of her damaged spinal discs and replaced them with donated bone, a major procedure that required a lengthy and painful recovery process. Even after the surgery, she continued to suffer with persistent pain, which would remain a feature of her life for decades to come. Taylor's medical history was not limited to spinal complications. Throughout her life, she was plagued by a string of illnesses and physical traumas. In 1961, she came close to death after developing a life-threatening case of pneumonia while filming Cleopatra in Rome. The infection caused her lungs to fill with fluid, and in an emergency procedure to save her life, doctors performed a tracheotomy, a small incision in her windpipe to help her breathe. The scar from the operation was visible for the rest of her life, a rare imperfection on an otherwise idolized face. The treatment for the pneumonia was advanced for the time, involving the use of bacteriophage therapy, a medical approach not widely used in the West. Her health crises continued into the next decade. In 1968, she underwent an emergency hysterectomy, which not only had emotional ramifications due to its effect on her ability to have more children, but also exacerbated her existing back and hip pain. The removal of her uterus caused hormonal imbalances that likely contributed to her fluctuating weight, depression, and increased dependence on prescription medications. Taylor's physical pain was often accompanied by emotional and psychological strain, leading her to self-medicate with alcohol and a dangerous mix of prescription drugs, including painkillers and tranquilizers. Over time, she developed a serious addiction, which threatened both her career and her personal relationships. In a groundbreaking and courageous move, she became the first major Hollywood celebrity to publicly admit herself to the Betty Ford Center for Substance Abuse Rehabilitation. Her 7-week stay from December 1983 to January 1984 was not only a personal turning point, but also a cultural milestone, helping to remove the stigma surrounding addiction treatment. Her openness encouraged many others, both in and out of the entertainment industry, to seek help. However, sobriety was a long and difficult journey for Taylor. She suffered a relapse later in the 1980s and checked herself into the Betty Ford Center once again in 1988 for another round of treatment. By the 1970s, her physical struggles were compounded by weight gain, which became a topic of public discussion and tabloid ridicule, especially during her marriage to U.S. Senator John Warner. Taylor, however, addressed her health and body image issues head-on by writing a candid book, Elizabeth Takes Off, published in 1988. The memoir was part confessional and part diet manual, where she openly discussed her weight battles, emotional eating, and the pressures of maintaining a public image. It was well received and became a bestseller, further solidifying her role as a relatable and resilient public figure. A longtime smoker, Taylor continued the habit for many years until a second near-fatal bout of pneumonia in 1990 forced her to quit. The illness marked another brush with death and served as a wake-up call, leading her to abandon smoking altogether after decades of dependence. As Taylor aged, her health continued to decline at an accelerating pace. During the last 2 decades of her life, her appearances in public grew increasingly rare, especially after 1996, when her mobility was severely limited. She endured a series of complex medical procedures, 2 hip replacement surgeries in the mid-1990s to alleviate severe joint pain and improve her ability to walk, followed in 1997 by brain surgery to remove a benign tumor. In 2002, she was successfully treated for skin cancer, yet another battle added to her growing list of medical conditions. Her spine, however, remained a lifelong adversary. Taylor eventually became reliant on a wheelchair, unable to walk without assistance due to her back problems. In 2004, she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, a chronic condition in which the heart cannot pump blood effectively, leading to fatigue, fluid retention, and difficulty breathing. The diagnosis marked the beginning of the final chapter of her health decline. Despite the suffering she endured, Taylor remained remarkably resilient, retaining her signature wit and sense of self to the end. She passed away at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on March 23, 2011, at the age of 79, 6 weeks after being hospitalized for complications related to her congestive heart failure. Her death marked the end of an era, the final curtain call for one of Hollywood's most luminous stars. Her funeral took place the following day at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, a cemetery known for being the resting place of many entertainment legends. It was a private Jewish ceremony, reflecting her conversion to Judaism in 1959, and was led by Rabbi Jerome Cutler. True to her iconic flair and sense of humor, Taylor had one last joke to play. At her own request, the service began 15 minutes late. As her representative explained, she even wanted to be late for her own funeral. She was entombed in the great mausoleum of Forest Lawn, not far from her dear friend Michael Jackson, forever sealed within Hollywood's hallowed grounds.